Yes. Look, I'm not a media expert, but I've done quite a significant amount of reading about ethical journalism because I had an issue with the media was covering the facts and developments in the occupied Palestinian territory since October 2023, and not because there were not enough reasons to do that, to have that critical approach before. But there are some key principles like truth and accuracy, according to which journalists should strive to give an accurate and fair account of events. And I don't think this has happened because in many instances there has been a repetition of unverified facts, very often coming from disputed or not very credible sources. The other principle is independence. Journalists and certain media have been investigated by other journalists as not truly independent. They have masked themselves, they have hidden themselves against behind the word neutrality. But they have taken side. They have been biased in the ways they have selected facts to report on, and voices to host, and also the kind of different line of questionings and the assumptions, sometimes revealing a racial bias again in the line of questions. The other elements are really fairness and impartiality. We know now, because it's been increasingly exposed, and there are also cases where I have received complaints myself, and I've listened to and I've received, I've heard, I've spoken with journalists themselves who have been either fired, dismissed, or mistreated in their position, told not to talk about genocide, not to talk about war crimes against or crimes against humanity. So there has been like a thought police in between quote unquote in the media. So I think that as in other genocides, the role of the media will have to be investigated, because in international tribunals have exposed the role of media, for example, in enabling, in creating a conducive environment for genocidal acts, in the case of Rwanda and in the case of former Yugoslavia. What is interesting here, as I've said before, it's a case where it's not the Israeli media, or it's not the Israeli media only. It's international media, corporate media, Western media, which has taken this conduct, and it's very regrettable.
Thank you. Mr. Fakhri, please go ahead.
I'll start just with what the International Court of Justice has said and then build on that analysis. So in the recent International Court of Justice advisory opinion on the legal consequences of Israel's occupation of Palestinian territory since 1967, the court held that Israel's occupation is some case of racial segregation or apartheid, without clarifying which one. But it was very clear that Israel is engaged in the most severe form of racist policy. To turn to the specific concept of apartheid, building on decades of work, both from within the United Nations and amongst international legal experts, I align myself with those that recognize that it is the most extreme form of racial segregation in that it is apartheid. What that means is this. Why does it matter? Naming things matters. It means that it's not just that Israel systemically and regularly implements its laws and policies in a way that is racist and dehumanizes the Palestinian people. When we say it is apartheid, what that means is the Israeli legal and political regime, as constructed institutionally, is designed to dehumanize the Palestinian people, and in this case, for the purpose of displacing them from their territory. That's why, again, to turn back to what is to be done, the issue of sanctions is important. The court requires all member states of the United Nations to impose sanctions against Israel. jointly and individually, to end the illegal occupation. One can interpret this narrowly, meaning you can then, if you're a country, you can say, okay, I'm going to impose sanctions against Israel to end its illegal occupation, but I'm only going to look at Israel's presence on the ground in the occupied territories. But if you understand it as a system of racial segregation, as an apartheid, that means you have to apply sanctions against Israel as such, against the entire state of Israel, because it is constructed institutionally to undermine the humanity of the Palestinian people. Because of this apartheid regime, then, and I'm not the first to say this, and I won't be the last, is why Israel has been able to starve the people so quickly. The food system is designed to undermine the strength of the Palestinian people. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Fakhri. Are there any other questions in the room or online for the Special Rapporteurs? Still have a little bit more time. Any other questions? Did you want to?
I'll just add on the media question. We've also been concerned about the Palestinian authorities' banning of Al Jazeera, which I don't think is obviously very helpful or consistent with freedom of expression and freedom of the media. To echo what Francesca said about censorship of and attacks on journalists, in my country, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, which is our national public broadcaster, took a radio announcer off air because she simply retweeted a Human Rights Watch report about Palestine with no comment. I mean, this is the level of censorship that's going on because people are afraid of the kinds of pressure that all kinds of institutions are getting from organized political forces, whether they be the media, universities, public servants. I mean, this kind of intense polarization around the space to advocate on these issues has been incredibly destructive to debate on these issues. The weaponization of anti-Semitism, the efforts to ensure the International Holocaust Remembrance definition of anti-Semitism is taken up by as many states and institutions as possible when it's deeply flawed, as has been pointed out in numerous reports by special rapporteurs over the years, including Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression, the former Special Rapporteur on racism. I mean, it's very clear that those are very problematic definitions that can't be squared with freedom of expression under international law. So that space to speak on these issues really needs to be protected and expanded, whether it's in the media, in universities, or elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Saul. If there are no other questions, and unless the experts have something further to add, please, Ms. Albanese, Ms. Satterthwaite, anything? No? In that case, we will close this press conference. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to the Special Rapporteurs for being here and online, and for your interest in their work. Thank you.